Hello, this is Brian with Walnut Farm Bees. Well, it's Saturday and not doing what I thought I would be doing outside this weekend. We've got some steady rain outside and really quite cool and rainy. The remnants there of Hurricane Ian. And so I thought it would be a good time to get a few projects done inside out of the rain. And some of you know that, maybe 5 years ago or so, we added to our apiary some AZ or Slovenian hives. And it started out as somewhat curiosity and seeing whether or not this would be a good option for beekeepers as they age and people with disabilities, and I really wanted to explore it. So we ended up with 6 AZ hives, and I'll give you a walkthrough of those a little bit later because we have to get into those. But there's various ways to address feeding issues in those inside of those hives. But what I wanted to do is make some changes here for October so that I can feed in a more similar way to what we do with all the rest of our Langstroth hives, which is feeding from the top with buckets or jars. And in fact, inside of these AZ hives, you'll see it's basically like a cabinet. So my thought is that any of those that need a little bit more feed, we can put some jars in there and be able to, they'll keep it warm and be able to take that feed down. So it should work pretty well. But what we're gonna have to do first is, some of the hives are 2-story, which means 2 stories of 10 frames, and some are 3-story. What we do for the winter is we move them down. The 2 stories get moved down to 1 story. So essentially what was a honey super on top then becomes a single brood nest, single side level colony for the winter. And 3 stories we move down to 2 stories. And get this board here. Usually just to separate one of the stories before we're filling them out in the spring. You see I got this kind of dirty, and it's got a lot of old wax and propolis on it. That's just a really thin 1/8" board. And what I want to do when I move the bees down here, I still have to move them down. They're still having access with a queen excluder to that top, but they're going to get moved down. And I had some leftover Advantech plywood, which those of you who have used it know it's pretty solid, heavy stuff. Some people even use it for hive lids out in the weather or bottom boards. Rather than that, I wanted to use it in a more protected environment, but these are really heavy. And so basically I'm going to cut them to roughly the size of these. So I have a much thicker board. I'll drill a 70mm hole that will fit my canning jar or either quart or 2-quart jar plastic feeders, and so that I can set this on top of where I push the bees down and be able to feed right on top. Might even use it as a way to put a larger jar with some emergency winter feed if that becomes necessary at all for those colonies over the winter. So going to cut these and then go ahead and drill a hole there in the center. And then as soon as we get a nice day this coming week, move the bees down. We'll get some video of that when the weather's nice, and install these new boards on top of where the bees are. Put a feeder on there to backfill just a little bit of sugar syrup. And then once they have had a chance to fill some of that in, before we get too late in October, then go ahead and close the hole and leave it that way until next spring. So here we go. We've got a piece cut that matches the 1/8 inch thinner board. And then we'll go ahead and drill a hole in here in the center, which, you know, a lot of the feeders for the AZ Slovenian hive feed from the side, which is fine. But the heat of the colony will work even better for this time of the year, taking that syrup down at various times of day. There you go. You can see we've got those drilled out. I got 6 of them since we have 6 AZ hives. And the next thing we'll show you is the inside of those hives and moving the bees down so that we can install these. But we'll have to wait for some nice weather. It's still raining outside today. Still raining outside yet. Just wanted to show you the Slovenian hives from the outside. One of the nice things is I can get in there in the rain or the dark if I want to. More bees are home, of course, so might limit the things that you want to be able to do. There's some nicer Slovenian style hives and AZ hives out there, especially as far as sheds are concerned. But ours started out as a kid's playhouse, then a chicken coop, and really just put these in it. So nothing really special. As far as the inside is concerned, it would probably be nice for it to be taller and you could stand in it. Here's the inside. Again, just kind of a rough little building. Got 1, 2 of the 3-story, 4 of the 4-story. Let me see if we can just take a peek at some bees here. Rainy day, so should have some home. They like to propolize the screens in there. Let's get another one. 3-story. There we go, there's some bees through the little crack in the propolis. These are the only hives that you'll see we don't do anything as far as insulation, and the only ones we have to do something about ventilation. These, plus we have a polystyrene colonies that we use for our breeder queens. What I find, and everyone has a different opinion on this, of course. There you go. There's a full colony there. It's gonna be tough to push those ones down. Everyone has different opinions on these things. But the more you insulate, the more you have to worry about moisture is what I've found. So the reason why we only put just that Reflectix that I showed you just underneath the lid on the rest of the hives, we don't have to worry about moisture, and don't bother with upper entrances, any kind of moisture things. The only time I have to use like a quilt box or something like that is if I have a heavily insulated colony. And you'll see on these, what I'll do here, let's see, this flips down. I'll flip this down and I'll put a screen or a foam there just to let some of that moisture out, because they are essentially so insulated. So not insulation, especially in our region, not always what you think it might be.